Yo, what's up guys, Insane Game Freak here. Larry, here it is. Finally. Jesus. This is my review of Totems, issue 1 by OAW Comics, which is Larry of Otaku Assemble Weekly. Okay, since I think there's about a good 3 or 4 videos already doing the non-spoiler version of this comic, like reviewing this comic. I figured I'd do the spoiler version because, for one, that's my style, and 2, that's a bullshit justification for why it took me so long to make the video. So, yay! So if you don't want to see spoilers, then I'll probably link a few of the other reviews if you want to see a non-spoiler review, but this is a spoiler review, so, and it's the first issue, so anything I spoil you on is something you were going to read anyway. I probably won't, I may or may not do that for the later issues, it really just depends on how I am, but spoiler review, so if you don't want to know about spoilers, links in the description for non-spoiler reviews. Okay, so the premise of Totems is simply, you have these 3 main characters. You have Carter, Eddie, and Nate, or Nathaniel is his actual name, but Nate is what everyone calls him. Those are your 3 mains. They're pretty much just all 3 normal high school students that have their own problems and issues in life, but the main character really is Nate, because that's the one you're focusing on, or the one we see the most of throughout the actual story, well, at least for the first issue. And we're kind of watching him, you know, interact with his friends and whatnot, Carter and Eddie, but at the same time we're also noticing that he's having a lot of issues at school and at home and even with his friends, because he's, you know, he's not necessarily the popular kid. He's like this artsy nerd, if that makes any sense. Which I'm pretty sure Nate is based off Larry himself, because I know Larry is an art major, and I know I know he likes wolves. Like, I feel like Nate is probably just an extension of Larry himself. So for those who know Larry or know anything about Larry, that's probably where that came from. That's just a guess. He feels like a mix of Larry and Static Shock. That's just me. Eddie is like typical bookworm nerd. He has no interest in sports, and he's just kind of like, I'm gonna read books all day, which is kind of explained through the scene where he's reading books during swim class. And Carter, and I think a lot of people said this, I know J-Man thinks this too, Carter's probably my favorite character right now, because he's that character who intrigues me just because of his whole setup. He's a gamer, but he's built like a running back, which obviously hints at a few things about his character and his backstory, which is going to get into a minor problem I had relating to him. Not him as a character, I just feel like, and maybe this is just how I felt about the issue itself. The issue is good. I'm not even going to argue that it's not. There are certain, I know, the problem is, since it's just the first issue, I can't tell you what things are me nitpicking and what things are me just, are like legitimate issues. I know there's one legitimate issue I have, the other ones I think are maybe just me nitpicking. But anyways, going back to the story, Nate is having these weird dreams, and a lot of them are involving wolves. And the first issue, going through school life and everything, and he's kind of just tired and wants a break from everything for a while. Through a course of 3 separate events, when Eddie's going home, or Carter's at home, and Nate's at home, they all run into these have their own run-ins with these mysterious creatures, these spirit animals, these totems. And the issue ends with them meeting their individual totems, whereas Eddie meets his in the middle of rain, coming out of a bookstore. Nate meets his while taking care of the horses at his ranch, and he runs into a totem. And then Nate just has a thing on his fucking bed, and it's just kind of like, well, this is interesting. Now, the things I like the whole concept of totems. To me, it gives me a cool Shaman King vibe, where you kind of have that whole spirit situation going in back and forth. I like the characters. Nate is like one of those characters where he's not necessarily, like, he feels familiar enough that you can relate to him, but still different enough. It's kind of hard to describe because he's not necessarily insanely different, but he's not one of those he's not one of those black main characters who come off really, really cocky. Nate doesn't come off cocky at all, which kind of shocked me. He's kind of like a normal, average teenager, but still has his, you know, his own separate issues. Plus that, how rare do you see a main character be an artist? I mean, honestly, just saying. Most main characters are like nerds, like just straight, stereotypical nerds. So I think he's original in that aspect. Eddie's cool, you know, I mean, the only two things we really know about him is that he likes to read books and he has no interest in, like, and they're both kind of, like, and the thing is, you can tell, and the other thing I like is that during, like, the beginning of the issue, Nate and Eddie, you can obviously see the friendship there, because they're not afraid to take pot shots at each other. I mean, like, Eddie just randomly calls Nate's like, so, you're chicken shit. And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. And then Eddie just busts out laughing in front of him. He's like, wow, you really got no love. You also get introduced to a few bully-ish characters. Damien, Zeke, and Billy. Zeke and Billy are just stereotypical thug. Like, not, when I say thug, I mean like mafia kind of thug, not like black thug. Like just brute muscle kind of characters. The weird thing I will say is that Damien is like one of those like underhanded bullies where he's not necessarily a dick to everybody, but he obviously is a douche. Like, it's kind of hard to describe him. Plus that, he doesn't seem to necessarily have a direct problem with Nate or Carter. And technically, he doesn't do anything against Eddie either, but you can, I mean, there's like a scene right before the swim meet where he makes a little comment about Eddie, and then on top of that, Eddie is the only one who's getting actually bullied when we run into Carter for the first time, which I'm going to go ahead and get into. Also, and I guess one other thing I should mention is at the beginning of the story, and I didn't mention it because it's kind of unrelated. It's more foreshadowing than anything. At the beginning of the story, we see this girl named Allison running away from this dude in the cloak with this snake. And the snake and her are having a conversation while running from the guy, and then the snake tries to protect her from the guy, and the snake gets murdered. And you have this guy talking to her about, it's like, you chose them over us. And it's like, well, yeah, I chose my friends and my family. It's like, no, you chose conformity, which can kind of tell you which ideal is going to be brought up within at least the first section. Like if I thought of it as a season, I figured this first quote-unquote season would be based around that. Because I'm pretty sure after, you know, the whole totem interactions and the initial shock of everything, and they start having interactions with this guy in the cloak, maybe not, I'm not sure. We're going to get into the whole concept of ideals and conformity, and whether you want to, and what is conformity, defining it, and whether you want to, if you want to just stick with what society deems is okay, or if you want to go outside of that, which is what I'm thinking it's going to. Plus that, it seems like he has some type of firepower, so that hints at something else too. So I believe those are most of the pros, while also giving a synopsis of the series. I'm going to get into some minor things that the one negative I do have, and I believe it's a true negative, is not even with the story itself, but is with the art style. These are like the first few pages, but here's the first problem I have. With the art style itself, I feel like certain pages are really dark and they end up blending in with the other panels, so I can't really tell that these are different panels. The only way I can tell is because the scenes don't, like, obviously you're not seeing her entire legs here. That's the only way you can possibly tell, because it's like, if you're reading this, like, in normal light, it's still kind of hard to see where the lines end and the lines begin. I mean, the white background here helps. You know, this white line here for the border helps, but I feel like some of these scenes are just really dark, and they end up blending in with the lines, and it makes it look bad. Now, to be perfectly honest, that's only really a problem with the dark scenes. The normal school, everyday scenes are fine, but I just thought that was kind of a weird way to start out the comic, that like the first few pages are really dark, the lines are blending in, and you can't really differentiate between panel to panel. I mean, it's not like a huge thing. I mean, honestly, you could honestly consider this a nitpick too, but I don't know, I just feel like maybe there should be more of a differentiation between how dark a panel border is and to the actual colors in the panel itself. I don't know. I'm not like a comic book expert, so maybe that's how it's supposed to be, but I don't know, that kind of really bugged me. And it only really is a problem, as I said, in the dark scenes. The art style is one of those things where it's kind of like an acquired taste. Personally, I don't really have a problem with it because I'm not a stickler for art style. But then again, I've seen the comics I have seen have a kind of a similar set kind of style, so it's not anything really bad. So props to the artist. You know, the only thing I have a problem was the coloring. I just feel like the coloring was too damn dark and it kind of blended in. The other nitpick I had is that I kind of wish there was a little bit more of Carter. And what I mean by that is that Carter is introduced like within probably around the halfway point in the issue, which considering these issues aren't that long, you know, he's introduced way, like, we get to see less of Carter than we do of Eddie and Nate. So when Carter's introduced, we literally just know that from the interaction we know is that he's a gamer and he sticks up for his friends. That's like the two things I got from him. The thing that bugs me, and maybe it's just because of the bio card, but the bio card you get with the comic tells you, the bio card tells you that he used to be a linebacker and he turned into a video game enthusiast. But, you know, it's not necessarily conveyed in the comic. Now, mind you, it's not one of those things that needs to be inherently brought up, but I kind of wish it was, because it's like you're introducing Eddie and Nate, and they kind of feel a little bit more fleshed out than Carter does, because Carter only has like a few scenes, and then literally we're just going into the Totem interactions, and I'm just kind of like, eh. Like, I thought something subtle, like, just to give you an example of something I kind of wish they did. When I think it's Zeke is talking to Carter, he's like, I would expect it better from you. I kind of wish he'd been like, kind of like, if he had said something along the lines of, this is, you know, you used to be, I mean, like, you used to be so much cooler than this, or something. Like, something to hint that he obviously had a previous life. Because if you take it at face value, and I know you're not supposed to do that, especially if this is Larry's comic, you're definitely not supposed to do that. But if you take that as face value, it's just kind of like he's like that gentle giant kind of character, where he's like, he's a character that looks like he should be something else, but he's not. And I'm just kind of like, it says in his bio card that he obviously had a previous situation and something happened, and that's why he turned into a video game enthusiast. I kind of wish there were like subtle hints at that he used to be a linebacker. I don't know, man. As I said, that could be a nitpick. The other thing is the scene where Nate gets home and it's him and his dad talking while he's putting up dishes, and he's telling him asking about Allison, because Allison, the girl we saw at the beginning of the issue, is actually someone that goes to Nate's school. And my whole thing with that is that it's like, there's a scene where he's kind of like, he says, like, where he's talking about how her mother feels. Like, you can kind of gather that he works at some type of hospital. And like, he was talking about, her mother thinks that she ran away or committed suicide. I know what it's like to lose a child. And then Nate kind of flips out on him, because he's like, why do we have to have this conversation? Why does every conversation we have to turn into Alex? Which is hinting to the dream we saw at the beginning of the issue, where he wakes up, but we see it through his perspective of him looking out, and they're in like some broken car, and you see like two dead bodies hanging and bleeding and shit, and it's like, and you see two text bubbles saying "Mom, Alex" and shit. Obviously, that's hinting that probably in some point in time, his mother, his brother, and him got into a car accident. For some reason, he was the only one to survive. I mean, that's what I gathered from that whole situation. So obviously, it's hearkening back to that. And it's not necessarily that bugs me, but it's what his father responds with that bugs me. I thought you were over that. And I'm just kind of like, that seemed like, it didn't necessarily seem like something a father would say, especially if he's the one who brought it up in the first place. It's like, why would you say, I thought you were over that? And then, I mean, and the thing is, like, Nate's response, I feel like that was just a setup for Nate to have that response. Because it's just like, I don't know anyone who just naturally, it's not like his father's a dick. I mean, if his father was emotionally insensitive, which maybe is what you were trying to get across, but it's kind of hard because he's thinking about Alex anyway. And what made it even weirder is that if he was going to think about something, you would think he would think about his wife more than Alex, but then again, I don't know the whole backstory, so maybe maybe I'm putting too much thought into that. As I said, I don't know, that text just, I don't know, that phrase just bugged me. I was like, it's like, I thought you were over that. And I'm just sitting there like, why would you say that? Like, no, that's just me. Overall, I still give it like if I was gonna rate it, I give it like an 8, 9 out of 10. I mean, I still enjoyed it. It's not like I think he was more. I think to me, I know Larry was like in the back. He even mentions he was worried about the pacing, so he went more towards fast paced and slow paced, and you can definitely see it because, as I said, I kind of wish we saw a little bit more of Carter. Or had Carter fleshed out. Obviously, you don't want to have it stereotyped where all the 3 main characters are hanging out at the same time. So I don't mind Carter coming in later. I just kind of wish there was like maybe another section. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just more complaining that the issue's too damn short. Which I guess for an author who's writing the shit, to get your reader wanting to see more is a good thing. So I guess on that front, kudos. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling on at this point. But that's my overall thoughts. I thought it was, I mean, it's an enjoyable first issue. It's only $4. I'll leave the links to where you can buy it in the description. Larry, here you go. Here you go, bro. Here you go. Here you go. I liked it. I liked your shit, dude. Oh, I have fucking problems. Oh, man. Anyways, good shit. I enjoyed it. If you've already read it, or you own it, or you're planning to get it, whatever the fuck, please leave your thoughts and comments on it in the comment section below. Go support my boy out. His channel will be linked on annotation somewhere on the screen, and description will have where you buy it. So that is my review for Totems Issue 1. This has been the Insane Game Freak. Life's a game, play to win, and I will catch you all later. Peace.